is only a transition to a different sphere of consciousness. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. She is a living presence in their spiritual earthbound plane.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Talking to the Dead podcast. This week, and for the next conceivable weeks as far as I can see, the Talking to the Dead podcast will take a different direction. I mentioned this last week, that the recent project we did with music, I think for now, is on hold. Although I think perhaps something will come of it over the next few weeks in some way or fashion. But what I thought we'd actually do now, and this has come very strongly to me almost before last week's episode where I put together all the different songs from Neil, is that I needed to get out. And I was being given this very strong message that I needed to leave where I do my podcast and try to find spirits in other buildings, maybe old churches or hospitals or old castles or whatever it may be. Because in a way, this communication is very, very possible. Because of the things I've learned, I realize that there is that in-between state after we die, and our consciousness is slowly being removed from our physical body completely. But the memory of our physical body is embedded in that consciousness and still exists in this sort of halfway house between the next dimensions after life and the life that we've lived. So in our terms, in terms of time, this process could last many hundreds of years and would account perhaps for some of what we've seen as ghosts or heard of as ghosts or spirits. But also the energy and the consciousness manifests itself still in the environment and the things that the person touched in their life or lived in fact, of course, in a house. So it's very, very possible, for what I've been told by Titan and others, that if I go to places which I hope are probably ripe with spirits, I should be able to contact some. So that's really the very interesting thing for me. I would love to get back now to being able to contact people who are in that state. We've seen what happens after that state, once they've had a chance to understand their past lives and go through that whole process of renewal, eventually leading to reincarnation. I've certainly been given that impression that I really can't go much further in terms of the meaning and a description of these higher dimensions, because the mind, the body of a human is just not capable of channeling that information, and that's why we did it through music and words. But I know I've completely reached a limit there. I can't go any further because I cannot interpret or see or understand the dimensions that exist beyond that, which is why, again, I think I've been pushed back to this, where I'm going completely the other direction and back to where we started by communicating with people who have either died recently or died long ago, whose consciousness still is around, and for whatever reason, they haven't moved on to the next step. Now, obviously, to some people, the process of what I'm doing, as probably happened in the early episodes, is fraught with danger, and maybe even to some people it's anti-Christian. And I do realize that the Bible is quite full of comments about spiritualists and talking to the dead, and is actually very un-Christian. And I know the Catholics hate it, and they feel that what I am doing is not really communicating with the dead people per se, but probably with evil spirits who are trying to manipulate me and take me over. Now, obviously, having gone through the process that I have over the last few months, I realize that that's just rubbish, and that just doesn't exist. But of course, I have a healthy skepticism with all, so I will make sure that when I go, for instance, like I will today, to a church, I will make sure I do my protection rituals as before. and I will treat it with tremendous respect. I'll be a little bit nervous, I think, doing it in the church as to people will see me, but I've got new equipment, so I will take my Mac, I've got a new lapel microphone, and I will try to be as discreet as I possibly can, so people don't think that I'm either talking to myself or completely mad. But before I pack my stuff up and go over to the church, I just wanted to say one more thing. Obviously, as I have realized, we never pass away and die if we like. Our spirit exists, our soul exists. All that happens is that our souls move away from the physical body. And these souls are as alive as you and me. And it does sound a bit strange because it's not a very human construction, but it is a different form of life, but it is life nevertheless. Obviously, we've realized that these souls live in an immaterial dimension, and there are lots of different dimensions. And the earth world is just one of the dimensions that they have access to still, but they also live in this in-between dimension where they can project their consciousness still to humans and to objects and animals and everything else, while also being simultaneously in another dimension, either exclusively or not exclusively, but more than 80%, say, than the sort of 20% that they leave behind. So I suppose that 20% that's left behind will give us the illusion of a human life, and they will talk as humans, and they will have all the memory. I think it was even described, it was almost like some sort of robotic bot, that it was everything that person was up to the point of their death. They obviously can't talk about anything after, but they can talk about everything that existed within their life, and potentially even previous lives before that. So we're just going to be, if you like, observing and seeing a snapshot of a particular dimension. The communication side of things, yes, I will continue to try to channel and communicate with them. Probably I will ask Titan to come through and help me. I have no problem, as you know, being able to communicate. That's not anything that's going to be hard for me. I can certainly feel things around me when I'm there. I can see auras with my eyes. I feel the presence of things, so I will do my best to describe what I feel and what I see. And that's really it. I think nothing more to say except go to where I'm planning to go. So where am I going today? Well, this came through to me quite a while ago, and I felt it should be the first place I go to. And it's actually called the Sankt Maria in Lyskirchen. And I am, as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast, a resident of Cologne in Germany. And not far away from where I work is the Lyskirchen Church. It's always been a fantastic place to see. It's one of the few churches that wasn't completely destroyed during the Second World War. And it dates back to 948, when it was first mentioned in a document from Archbishop Wigfried of Cologne. And throughout the years, it's gone through the Middle Ages, and it's been restored, and it's been knocked down and rebuilt, and it's like all things in life. We only have an idea of our little 100-year lifespan, but this thing has been going for hundreds of years, and it's been destroyed and rebuilt, and tastes have changed, and different frescoes have been mounted, and different Romanesque architectural forms have been installed, and new windows and new exteriors. And really everything was trucking along like that until the war in 1939 until 1945, when this church was largely destroyed. I mean, all the roofs were destroyed. The tower was badly hurt. The vaults were hurt. The paintings were kept in some of the vaults in the basement, and they remained intact. But some of the vaults completely collapsed, and the damage to the building caused by air pressure from the bombing raids smashed an awful lot of stuff. It wasn't until 1947 that the church was restored, and all the paintings that had been saved were put back. And this went on really until 1977, when it was finally fully restored. And between 1982 and 1989, the outside skin of the church was restored. So that's basically the history of Sancta Maria in Lyskirchen. I will put some more information and a link to its website at the bottom of this episode's description. So I hope you find this as interesting as I hope it's going to be. I'm certainly looking forward to it. And I will now make my way over there and carry on the podcast. So here I am in the Lyskirchen church. It has a wonderful echo. What immediately strikes me when I come in here is the coolness and the echo and all the beautiful frescoes and the paintings. It's a funny thing, it must be the Catholic tradition. If you weren't familiar with that, you'd probably think, what a violent religion, because all these different frescoes at different parts have images of Jesus being crucified or his wounds being bathed by people. So you get an immediate sense of death and murder when you come in a place like this. And this is a beautiful old church, and I really do sense the history. I feel completely alone. I don't feel anybody else is here. Maybe somebody's listening. So I'm a little nervous. I don't know what they would make of me doing this, but here we are anyway. So I've done my protection rituals, and I will try to contact Titan. Now, that didn't take me very long. Yes, most definitely feel a real loving presence of Titan. But actually, I feel the loving presence all around me. And as I sit here closing my eyes, I have the sense of love and community. I have this feeling of so much is around me. And it's all goodness. I don't feel anything that would be described as evil or unpleasant. I get that sense of love, which is strange when you see again these frescoes. And now Titan, you're here. Tell me a little bit about all of this. Why are we so obsessed with this sense of death and killing in a religion? Titan says that the most significant aspect of where you're sitting right now is that so many people have sat where you've sat before. Over hundreds of years, people have sat in the same area as you and have felt a peace, a sense of belonging and love. He said the church is something that specializes in giving people peace and belonging and love, and you're feeling that sense of all of that that's embedded in the walls of this church. There's the church bell. And the religion of the Catholics, or religion of Christianity generally, needed to have some serious basis, some drama, in order to make people feel that there was a depth and a value to it, but also with the story of the murder, or the trial and the murder and the torture and the public execution and all of the philosophical stuff that comes from that, transfiguration and everything else. It gave people an ability to find that link between earth and the other realms. The religion is that language that enables the physical human to be able to communicate with the soul and the higher entities. And it's a language, he says, that allows that communication to take place, which is universal regardless of whatever religion it is. The choice of Jesus and his death and his murder and his violence of the end of his life is again a wonderful, she says, metaphor for human life in itself, because life is not easy. It is full of struggle. It has death, unexpected death. It has murder. It has all of the things that were experienced thousands of years ago and by the central characters in the religious stories. And it enables us to realize that our life, no matter how difficult, how it seems sometimes to be pointless, to be full of strife, full of murder, in the end is a wonderful experience. It's something everyone went through, even if you believe in Jesus as the Son of God. Even the Son of God went through that. So it's almost as if he could do it, then you can do it. And if he can rise above it and he can forgive, she says, then the message is you can do the same. And she says that message of love and forgiveness and strife has come through to me in the last few weeks through Neil. And sitting here in the church, you get that feeling. I'm now feeling something different. As I'm sitting here, it's almost like it suddenly went very dark, which of course could be explained because there are beautiful stained glass windows here which light up and give color everywhere. But suddenly I felt a darkness. I felt this sense, not of evil, but I had this sense of something slightly darker than the lightness that I felt. Perceptively, I feel it colder than it was. And although it is lit by lights, gentle lights, and there's even a hanging lantern in the altar with a red shade, with a little oil lamp or a little candle, it does seem suddenly darker and cold. Titan says that there are people who will come through, but she's saying they are actually quite frightened to speak to you. They haven't really had that capacity here. She says most definitely in this particular church there are many spirits that are not so much trapped but have chosen to stay here. And I think I believe what Titan has said before and Neil has said before, this is a choice, but is also maybe a trap if for whatever reason people couldn't come to terms with their death and didn't want to pass on. Titan is saying in this particular case there are a number who love this church and have loved this church and feel a connection to it because they either worked here or prayed here and saw this as being their ideal heaven, and they've recreated that sense in their other dimension, and they still connect here even though they're not physically here, and they can spend some time, she says, between here as a place of redemption and thought and solitude, while also experiencing the lives in other dimensions. She says that something that's not really been made clear to you before is that, in a way, if you choose to, you never leave your life. You can always come back and feel everything you felt in that life for as long as you want, until you close that door and never want to come back. But for now, there are many people whose consciousness still comes back to a favorite place, or a person, or a place, or a thing. And she says what you're feeling are a number of happy spirits who have loved to be here, and feel that source of connection. She says she's using the word embarrassed. They are like you. They were human once. And because not many people over the centuries have made any attempt in this church to communicate with them. They feel a bit embarrassed and a bit shy. And she says they want to say that to you. On one hand, she's saying they're thanking me for taking the time to come and sit with them and understand them, and to give them validation for being here. But equally, they're embarrassed and shy because they don't really know how to communicate with me as a human. They don't do that anymore, and although, again, time is not the important thing, they still sense a feeling of a vacuum, she says, of communication with a human. And she's saying that, don't worry, they will soon get over it, and then there'll be so much. They will all be trying to talk at once. So she's saying she's going to be a gatekeeper and try to keep some order for me. And if I would just rest a while, she'll try to introduce someone to me now. The first people, she says, that want to come through are actually a group. And they are a group that have worked within their own worlds of architecture and painting, and all have contributed, she says, to the design and the building of this church, the painting of the frescoes on the ceiling and the design of the windows, the paintings. They have invested a huge amount of their consciousness and obviously their human time in making this church what it is. And it is really stunning, but in an incredibly simple way. And the message that's coming through to me is the simplicity of it all, but also this group that represents this group of artisans is communicating as a whole to me and saying that I know that you look at the paintings now in the ceiling and you can see all the things that we painted, but the colors are fading. You can hardly make out the figures anymore. But once upon a time, they say, we were alive and we were so vibrant and you could see us clearly. You knew us, we had names. And we spent so much time here creating such a wonderful church. And they're saying the sadness that we feel and the darkness that you saw was that with the beauty of creation was the sadness of being forgotten. And they're saying we have been forgotten. Nobody remembers who we are. Through the history of this church, there have been so many hundreds of people involved, and so many are here with us. But nobody remembers who they are anymore. And there's a sadness to that. There is this darkness that their contribution has been forgotten. Well, I would say the fact that I'm here, the fact that people come to admire your work is more than enough reason to think you've not been forgotten. This group, this collective, is saying, yes, that is a truth that we have left behind a statement, we've left behind our art, that we did with our faith, but we still have regret and we still feel sadness of the lives that were left behind, the families, the communication, everything that we were has been forgotten. And the irony is, they're all saying, is this, that is human existence. A church that has been around for 1,000 years has had thousands of people living their lives and dying and living their lives and dying, and nobody remembers anymore. But we do. We remember our life. We remember our contribution, and that's why we've joined together, and we are a spiritual group that still communicates with this church. And our consciousness is here, our memories are here, And we enjoy reminding each other over the thousands of years each of us has participated of all that we've managed to achieve. And there is still a lasting landmark that exists in this church. They're asking me to please remember that when you come into a place like this, that it's not just as they believe the house of God. It is in a way their grave. It is their memories. It is still their visitation point. It is still a place they consider to be a wonderful earthly creation, so wonderful that they still want to visit that and still want to be part of it as it goes through yet another 1,000 years of history. And they will help inspire. They will help new artists with their ideas. They will be involved in the new painting, the new rebuildings that will take place in our terms, they say, in the next few hundred years. And they will never leave in our terms, because this is where they feel part of their consciousness is so happy and so involved. Wow, it's quite a thought that if you are creating something like this and you feel so invested in it, that you never really leave it. You can always be part of it, and always, like now, I'm accessing that. I'm accessing that massive sense of creation and light, but equally I feel that darkness, that they're not here anymore physically, to be able to, as I think they're saying to me, come up to me and shake my hand, to give me a hug. They would love to do that, but they can't. But I see now somebody coming towards me in my mind's eye in a white robe, and he's kneeling down in front of me, and he has a bowl, and I think it has food, and presenting it to me as if I should take it. So I'm reaching out now, and I'm taking this imaginary food, and he stands up again. I'm not sure whether it's food or whether it's an offering or maybe a communion. And now I'm feeling them. I'm beginning to see them all. They are, I can't quite make out what they're dressed. They seem to be in different costumes, different outfits, so that may meet the ages that they were living. But they're all coming around me now, and they're welcoming me. I feel that they're wanting to touch me. They're wanting to feel me. They want to feel my energy. They seem to be so welcoming. They're treating me as a curiosity. I really feel like I've walked like a white man into Africa or something. That image comes to my mind. And I'm such a curiosity to them. But it's a lovely feeling. They're really just so happy. And they're sharing with me images of the work that they did. Paintings, stained glass windows, stonework, masonry. Now, I feel the sense of a man. I think he was the organist here, and he would play music in the organ just behind me. And I get a feeling this was probably 100 years ago, maybe less, maybe more. And this was a very important place for him to perform music. And he still enjoys the possibility to come back and to play music in this place. Yeah, he's showing me, his name is Hans. And he's showing me celebrations, he's showing me funerals. Excuse me. He's showing me happy times, and he's showing me sad times where music was being played in this church. And it still resonates here. It still had an impact, an emotional impact on people's lives. Hans is saying to me, you can't believe the feeling when you play an organ in a place like this. The echoes, the reverberations, the sounds, the memories, he says. It's such an amazing feeling. And it's so stirring for the people who listen. And it leaves a permanent mark. It helps open up a conduit to spirituality as well. But he says that he did see some terrible times here. He's saying actually now, he was here in the period of the Second World War, he's saying. And he said he saw some awful things happen. He said that he saw some colleagues who were taken away because they weren't approved of by the regime at the time. He saw so many people being taken away because they were Jewish in the local neighborhood, and he had a number of friends who were also Jewish. And around here, he's telling me that he, as the organist and the priest at the time, were hiding Jewish people in the vaults. And he's directing me now to look to my right, and straight ahead I can see there's a staircase going on under the main altar. There's a rope preventing me from going. But he says that they are there. They went down there to try to hide, and they were fed and watered, and we looked after a few families here to try to prevent them from being sent to the concentration camps during the war. He says that a number of his friends were found out for looking after these people, and they too were either executed or sent off to prison camps for helping. And these families were discovered, and they were taken away and sent to death camps in Poland. But he said, we did what we could. We did try. He says to me, Hans, that the history of Germany is often written as being the evil against the good, or the rest of the world against an evil regime. But he's saying we are still people. We were still people. We were still loving people. And just because we were of a different religion didn't mean that we forgot everyone. Some people did. Some people were truly awful and barbaric. But he says he wants us to mention to me now that this is a very strong feeling, that there was people who were loved and looked after here. It was very, very difficult because he says they had to live through bombing raids and destruction all around. And he's saying also during the bombing raids, he and other people were hiding in the vaults as well, as it was a place of safety. I'm really getting that strong sense now. I can almost smell the smoke. I can feel the vibrations of the bombs as they thudder around me. And I can also then feel this feeling of love and safety, and where people could come and eat, although food was scarce and water was scarce. It was still a local church where people would come and pray, people would come and hide, people would mourn their dead. They would pray, he says, for the end of the war, for their children to come back from war. all of that I'm feeling here too, through Hans. I'd love to know what happened to you, Hans. Hans said that after the war, he was taken to a camp. He wasn't so much a prisoner of war, but there was so little left around the Lyskirchen church. You couldn't live in this part of Cologne. So much of it was desolate from all the bombing. And he moved to a camp with a lot of other civilians, and it wasn't far away, and people lived in tents. And the Americans came, they provided food, they provided some safety. But he said that he was an older man towards that end period, and he wasn't well. He had suffered a lot. He said that he'd breathed in a lot of dust and a lot of stuff, a lot of damaging stuff to his body. He had seen so many people die. He saw burned out bodies in the street. So much death and destruction. Like I'm feeling with these paintings of Jesus. This church in this particular place did suffer a lot of damage, but so did all the people. And he died of an illness, of a disease. He says he's not sad about that because he had a long life, but he could have lived longer, but he did die. But he's saying to me that when he died, he was happy to die, because to him, everything about his church, everything about his community, everything about his family, many of his family died, he told me, in the bombing or in the war. And he was in a way happy. His time was gone, but he had nowhere to really go. And he says that's why he's here now, because this is his home and has always been his home. And he now has this chance to be with the people in, he's saying the word heaven. To him, this is his heaven. Many of his family and friends and souls gather here, and they don't get the chance to communicate much with human beings who could actually feel them like we are now. And he thanks me for that opportunity. He's saying, I hope you've enjoyed your visit to the church. He said, it is a wonderful church. We're wonderful people. Please don't forget us. Don't forget the good we did. Don't forget the goodness we did. Don't forget the love we showed, the sacrifices we made. Don't forget the evil we saw. He says that war is a terrible thing. Yeah, he's just saying, please leave your mark. Do something good. You won't be remembered, he says, really. But you'll find something that will attract you, and you'll always come back to that point. Thank you so much, Hans. And I think Titan, maybe that's enough for now. And I really enjoyed that. I felt the presence here, but I felt a lovely presence. I felt love and hope. I felt man's kindness to man, but as well as man's cruelty to man. But the sense of enough people still wanting to come back over hundreds of years to revel in what they achieved and to congregate. That's a wonderful thing.